The Senate passed a $95 billion foreign aid bill earlier this month that would send money to support Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. You co-wrote a piece for the National Review that said, quote, supporting America's allies puts America first. Break this down for us. How does that put America first?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me for this important discussion, because I really believe this. And whether it's this $95 billion one or the $60 to $65 billion one that's being generated within the House right now, both of them, in terms of security investments, do the same thing. They put about $40 billion into Ukraine security assistance. Now, what that is $40 billion that goes to one of three things: Presidential Drawdown Authority, that is pulling older gear from the U.S. Army, and then at U.S. companies buying replacement gear. That's about a third of the money. Another third of the money would go to going straight to American companies and buying something to be shipped to U.S. European Command in Stuttgart and given to the Ukrainians. And then the final third is to pay for the operations of U.S. European Command throughout this crisis, which is going to happen no matter what. And if they don't give that money, then there'll be a hole in the Department of Defense budget. So very specifically, all the gear that we're talking about, about $28 billion, $29 billion worth of gear is bought in the United States. The money never leaves here. It's not corrupted. It's not stolen, unless you think the U.S. Defense Industrial Base steals your money. It's not stolen. It goes to Florida, Georgia, California, Arkansas, Michigan, not Kiev, Moscow, anywhere else. There's another $14 billion in there that's very much military assistance for Israel. It's $4 billion worth of gear to replace their army munitions that they've expended in Gaza, $4 billion of FMF that I think will go towards munitions for their aircraft, to help deter anything that would happen on their northern front with Lebanon, and about $4 billion for Iron Dome and David Sling, their kinetic cruise missile and mortar defense systems that they've expended a lot of the weapons on in the Gaza right after the Gaza attack on October 7th and since then, and another $1.2 billion for Iron Beam, a directed energy system they're trying to develop. And then finally, there's $4 billion in there for Taiwan. And I love this. It's a small number, but the reason it's a small number is the war hasn't started. If you make these investments before left of boom, you can kind of achieve deterrence for a much lower cost. And this is $4 billion to complement the vastly growing Taiwan defense budget, which is now up at 2.5% of GDP, but obviously pales in comparison to the Chinese spending. China's 20 times the size of Taiwan's economy. So three different countries serviced by about $60 billion worth of important security investments.
I want to talk about those investments later, but to your point, there hasn't been a war that has started between China and Taiwan yet. So can you specifically talk about the threat that Taiwan faces from China?
Yeah, that's very important, because this is all about the United States, Taiwan, and our other allies, principally Japan and Australia, creating the conditions where when the Chinese leader Xi Jinping gets up in the morning, looks in the mirror, he has to say, not today. Because we've created a deterrent force that could overwhelm any type of attack he had. There is no doubt that in the Chinese long-range strategic planning, they stated very clearly, by 2049, Taiwan will be part of a fully integrated part of China. More specifically, we know that Xi told his military, be ready by 2027 to execute this. They may or may not get there, but we have made our own investments since the middle of the Trump administration and through the Biden administration that have made it much harder for China. But you have to consistently apply this. We have to consistently be developing our forces. We have to be developing our own munitions. Our munitions were in a terrible condition, really only exposed by the Ukraine invasion, where we looked at all our depots and said, oh my, we're in trouble. We have to invest in the Taiwan so that they're kind of a prickly pear, very, they call themselves a porcupine, hard to digest, which means they have mine warfare systems, anti-armor systems, all those kind of things. And then finally, we need Japan and Australia to be fully committed to working with the United States to deter China and, if necessary, defeat China if it tries to do something inappropriate towards Taiwan. So really, you got to bring all those elements together. And this $4 billion in this budget will go a long way, along with what the United States is routinely investing in its defense budget.